Welcome to another episode from Hen Refurb. This episode I'm going to take a look at the fuel tank and some of the major bodywork at last, so stay tuned. Right, so the first part I'm going to look at is, as I said on the last episode, the bulkhead, because this is quite important, because once this is fitted to the chassis, you've got brackets up there that let me fit the rods to the radiator frame, which means I can fit the bonnet, I can fit the radiator, I can fit this to the chassis, I can then put the windscreen frame onto this, which sort of follows the profile around. And then, obviously over there, is the wooden body, so eventually that can go on. So actually it kind of makes sense to do it in this order. And I need to do the side skirts as well, because they possibly run underneath this, between this and the chassis. Anyway, so as you can see, it's in a horrible state. All of this is some ancient repair work from the 60s or something. Over there's a few patches as well. That side is the better looking side. I dug out of my my bits collection all of the rust that was part of this in the chassis, right from when I took this off the chassis, which will give us an idea of, you know, what shape this was meant to be, etc. So, and given that this one is the best one, I'm going to leave this one and repair this one, which is completely knackered, but using that one as a template. So basically just going to chop it all apart and find out how far back I need to cut everything. If we go around this side, you can see there's a big sort of patch about that wide all the way down. So that's going to go. I'll clean the leftover body filler off, and then we'll cut off the rusty old metal that's underneath that patch, and then seam weld a new piece of metal in, just level, so flush with the original steel, so it won't look like a patch. You won't know it's there once it's done. And I'm going to rip this plate off and see what I can do. I might even try and just fabricate a whole entire new one of these base plate things for both sides, to be honest, because it's in a bit of a state. Okay, as you can see, I have made a replacement, one of these rusted out old bits of rubbish, and it's a lot shinier and doesn't have any holes in. So I've just got a few last little mods to do to this and a few holes to drill in it to make sure that it's going to work. And like I said, I've been copying it where I can from this side, so I'm very, very close to having it right now. And just got to do a final few tweaks, and then that side should be able to sort of go back together and then be rigid and solid. I mean, it's so flappy and falling apart. And I don't know if I ever mentioned in one of the first videos, but this bulkhead wasn't actually even attached to the chassis. You could literally lift the bulkhead up on the van when it was a whole vehicle as well. So it was definitely a problem that's been definitely needed fixing for a very, very long time, I think. So, yeah. Okay, well here's another update on the fuel tank. The cement mixing job worked really quite well, except it left in the tank, the surface was still kind of like very, very fine but slightly surface rusted. It took off all of the big stuff, all the flakes, and it sanded everything down, so it's all very smooth in there, but it's still brown. So I thought I'd try electrolysis. So there's a bag of sodium carbonate there. There's 12 tablespoons of that in there. This is full of water. Down there is an old battery charger. Here is an anode. So I'm going to put that in that hole. It's insulated so it doesn't touch the tank. I clip a positive lead onto that. I click a negative lead onto that nut, which is just the metal work of the tank. As you can see, that is live. And then we come over here. And you can probably hear it sizzling. So, just going to show you that again. That's a pretty clean lump of metal there right now. So I'm going to leave that for, I don't know, an hour, maybe 2 hours, and then I will bring you back and show you what it looks like after 2 hours of sizzling away on the tank. It's actually quite amazing, and I think I'm going to end up basically with a shiny silver tank on the inside after this, and then I can put the sealer stuff in and it'll stay clean forever then, hopefully. Okay, so moving forward about an hour and a half, look at that bubbling away. So pop that off. Pop that off, and then look at that. Absolutely chocker with rust. And that's just one and a half hours worth of grinding away, and it is real crusty, just disgusting stuff what comes off. So I think this is an effective solution. I'm just going to literally keep doing this over and over and over again. I clean that off, rinse it off, put it back in, and until brown stuff stops coming out. So yeah. This is the windscreen frame. Now this joins onto the bulkhead. The last scene you saw was me obviously doing work on the bulkhead, but basically I've chopped out this huge piece of metal because this had just rotted away, which meant that where this joins the bulkhead you just had this whopping great hole and it was not very nice. So this is all done. I did the exact same thing over this side. This wasn't quite as bad, but there's you can sort of make out the edge there. It's been fitted, it's a perfect join now onto the bulkhead, it all lines up nicely. I've got rid of a couple of holes. There was a hole here and one here where the wooden windscreen was fitted, but I'm going to do away with that at some point, so I wanted to get rid of all the holes, and then I'm going to have to be imaginative to try and fit it by clamping it instead of drilling holes. There was also a hole here and another one here. They've gone as well, they've all been welded over. And I actually made this hinge bracket is built in, integral to the windscreen frame. There's one on both sides. I made this one to exactly replicate the one on this side. And what that's for is the door mirror, though it wasn't in use because it had previously seized up and been chopped off on the van. So what I've done is I have prepared the windscreen frame to take a replacement mirror at some point in the future. I don't know when, but the job on that end is done, and obviously this is a bit further forward than it was when you last saw it. So I've just done a test fit, and that is to make sure that all the holes underneath line up with the chassis. And you saw me obviously replacing the underside bit, so I have this all new bracketry up at that end, all new holes, everything underneath. That side basically the same, but not quite as much got replaced. This pretty much all the silver is new metal. So there's a line sort of approximately that goes off up there, and then this whole side underneath, the whole underneath panel, everything is all brand new metal, which means it's not rusty. This side, I'm not quite finished yet, so you can see the actual stitch line that I've done, and so it's just made up of little spots. So I just spot, and then I go back and I spot halfway between the gaps, stops the panel from overheating and warping, and then just keep going until they all join up, and then I've ground them down a bit. So I've got quite a bit of work to do on this one still, just to get that finished, but it looks like it's going to line up and fit on the chassis, which is really good. So yeah, next up is just to finish the welding on that. There's not a lot, and then I can actually start looking at putting body filler and primer and, you know, all of those things to make it start looking like an actual panel. So this guy is complete now. That means it's time to move on to, well, bodyworky stuff, you know, primer, bit of body filler here and there. Yeah, and then actually start getting some paint on these things. So I'm going to paint this one. I'm going to do the windscreen frame with it, and the radiator surround too. Okay, so stuff has moved on a bit further yet again, and this is where we're at now. As you can see, I've been sanding a lot of stuff all over the floor here, which is just great. That's going to need cleaning up. But the fuel tank is here. It is basically approaching good enough looking. Bodywork wise, it's just got some bits of filler to finish up and sort out, another coat of primer and stuff on it to get that just good enough to paint. Doesn't have to be perfect, it's only a fuel tank. Who knows, one day I might have a new one made. And then in here, the usual bits, the radiator, surround, windscreen, and whatever that is, bulkhead, firewall, scuttle panel, I've no idea what you call that, but this is getting very, very, very close to being good enough to put a top coat on. The shape is really good, all of the welds, or any of the bodywork that I've done is near enough invisible now. Just got it right, and there's just a couple of little, you know, tiny little pickly bit there, for example, that just needs skimming over. There's just those dotted all over it, so I need to get it out in the sunlight and just sort bits like that out. So it's just a case of literally taking hours and hours and hours of picking around, looking for little dots, polishing them up, doing it again, fill them, sand them, paint them, whatever. It's just really slow. and really frickin' boring. So, but we're making progress, bit by bit. I'll get there one day, I think. Not sure when, but we'll just have to see on that one. Okay, right, it's time for an update. I've been doing a few things. That's the fuel tank. That now has its final top coat on it. And apart from just a couple of marks on the very underside, that's done, and those will just be touched up probably once I strap it to the chassis, because at the moment it has to be sat on something, which is kind of annoying because every bit of it's painted, but that's fine. The fuel tank has had obviously that amount of time on the cement mixer spinning round, grinding all the rust off. I then sat it in the bathroom for a while with a battery charger hooked up to it on the inside, which zapped off any of the rust that was left on the inside, and then I used a tank sealer, so it's protected from, you know, weird E10 petrol stuff that they make us use now, and any leaks or anything like that. So that tank is absolutely 100% good to go. Only problem, I never actually got round to painting all of these brackets that attach the tank to the chassis, and of course the sort of filler neck thing. So I'm going to do that now. But the same paint is also going to be used for this. So this is the bulkhead. Current progress is, you know, basically near enough ready to be painted fully. And that's the windscreen frame. Again, nearly ready to be done fully. But these two parts are bolted together and essentially exist as one part. So I'm going to paint just this inner part, and on here just this face, because those are the faces that will be, well, they're the faces in between the two parts, so they're not visible. I can't get to them. I won't be able to paint them once they're attached. So if I paint them now, bolt the thing together, and then carry on working on this panel like as if it's just one part thereafter, it means that, you know, rust and moisture and all that stuff won't ever happen in this gap, because it doesn't look like that was ever really painted, and it's not done it any favours. So I'm about to stick a coat of paint on all those things now. Right then, here's the end result. So we've got a lovely shiny dashboard, and basically all the bits down the side and whatever that are going to be sandwiched in the gap, and over here a nice shiny bit that you won't see anywhere on the windscreen frame. So now I've just got to join them together. I'm just going to clean the edges to make sure we haven't got any overrun of black, because this is going to be cream here, so we don't want that black coming out because it's not going to be very compatible with the cream. So I'm going to just make sure that the edges are where they need to be, and then I will put a bead of sealant along that edge, because it's a really, really nasty water trap right in the face of the wind and the rain, and there's not really anywhere for it to go. So if I seal it, water won't get there in the first place, and it should make it last a heck of a lot longer than it would otherwise. And then I bolt it together. That's about it really, and then I can start working on these panels as if they're one part then thereafter, which would be good. So I'm now working on the next job on the list, now that the dashboard thingy and windscreen frame are currently just drying. This is the radiator surrounds top coat, finally. So priming and tarting up and all that is finished. It's literally ready to paint it glossy blacky. So hopefully, yeah, that will go to plan. I'm going to do about 400 billion coats of paint on it. It's going to take probably all day or something, I don't know. And hopefully look good at the end of it. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you've got any questions or suggestions, pop them in the comments section below. Otherwise, see you next time.